Part 97. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 961. Man Bao is not very skilled in the business of counting days. She counted with her fingers for a long time and couldn't figure it out, so she ran back to the study and turned the books. After counting and counting, she decided on the next day, 21 is a good day. Bai Shan expressed his approval, just in time for a rest. Man Bao nodded, and there were still 4 days of preparation time, which was enough. Man Bao told Wu Lang of this date. Wu Lang took everyone to start preparations. Mr. Zhuang wrote a plaque for them, and Wu Lang took them to write for them. On the day the plaque was engraved, Man Bao deliberately took a half-day leave with Mr. Zhuang, took a look at the shop, and helped Wu Lang and the others carry their luggage there. There are 2 rooms in the backyard of the store, which are quite spacious. Wu Lang and the others decided to live in the store, which would be convenient for business operations. Man Bao walked around the yard and saw 2 iron pans in the back kitchen, one of which was obviously new. Friday Lang said, "The only advantage of the capital is that the iron pot is cheaper than the one sold at home." Man Bao laughed when he heard the words, "The capital is a big city, and precious things will be cheaper there." Rare things are precious, and Man Bao felt the deepest feelings about this, such as the flower seller in the mall. Because they didn't have Narcissus there, she just asked Keek to take a photo for him, and he was very happy. In his breath, he took out a lot of flowers that she had never heard of before. But it was precisely because she hadn't heard of it that she didn't accept it, because it seemed that this kind of flower didn't exist in her world. Man Bao was still very sorry. However, she probably understood the seller's mood, so with the consent of Keek and DRD, she told him about DRD's research. This time Man Bao put a narcissus plant on the forum, and DRD bought it directly. At present, her research has made some progress. Although more research has not come out, she already knows how to divide the plant, even if I only bought 1 plant and only 1 meatball, but she can cut it into 8 parts and ensure their survival rate. The current gene retention is also good. Since the last time Keek was involved in the situation of the future world and lost contact, Man Bao knew without a teacher what to say and what not to ask in the system. I also know how to get the information she wants. Whether it was Keek, researchers in the forums she came into contact with, or sellers in the mall, Man Bao found that for animals and plants, what they cared about most was genes, especially the stability of genes. She felt that this was important to them, to Coco's world. According to her experience, when something is lacking, it is expensive and important. Obviously, the genes of the future world are very unstable, so they need animals and plants with stable genes. And these things are divided into many kinds. Man Bao has also included chrysanthemums in the past. Keek said that after scanning, chrysanthemums of the same variety have not been included, so there are still a lot of points given. She thought that their world did not have chrysanthemums, but now it seems that they also have chrysanthemums, at least they look like chrysanthemums, but their genes have changed, and they belong to mutant chrysanthemums. Man Bao felt that the world was amazed. It seemed that it had many things, but it seemed that it didn't have them. Someone brought the things they bought, and Friday Lang only instructed them to put the things away. When he turned around, he saw Man Bao in a daze, and said, "If you feel bored, go home first, or go out to play, don't stay here." Man Bao returned to his senses, rolled up his sleeves and said, "Fifth brother, I'll help you." "Don't, your hands are very expensive. You need to hold needles, but you can't carry these heavy objects." "What if you get hurt?" Wu Lang said while arranging things. "Let's go to the inn today. I got my father's letter back. The letter said that all the wheat was harvested at home. The harvest was good this year. The 4th brother made a lot of money selling wheat to the Tang County magistrate and the villages in Yazhu. He also said that Mr. Lu someone is coming to Beijing, ask her if she wants to bring some money." Man Bao stretched out his hand. Where's the letter? Friday Lang patted her hand and said, at home. Who still carries the letter with me? I'll get it for you when I go back. Man Bao withdrew her hand. She lowered her eyes and thought for a while. I have to tell the fourth brother that the wheat business in Yazoo can't be done. Last year, the Tang County magistrate released a lot of wheat, and this year there must be a lot of them. The harvest is good, so our wheat seed has a good reputation. They didn't react at the moment. When they react, there are definitely many people who will sell wheat seeds to take out. It will definitely not make money next year. It's fine if we sell our own. If you buy someone else's home, you will lose money. Wu Lang nodded again and again. I think so too, unless the fourth brother and the others are going to pull the wheat seeds to other places to sell. Me and Zhou, Yazoo will definitely not work, neither can Longzhou. Bai Shan's family has almost taken up all the business there. Man Bao crossed out a large area in his heart, and then said, unless we go further afield. If you want to go anywhere, go to Jingzhou to have a look, and no matter how far you are, it will be around Luozhou and Zhengzhou. Wu Lang didn't know a single place, so he asked directly, where? Man Bao said solemnly, it's far away from us. Forget it. Just to sell wheat seeds for cars, it's going to cost a lot on the way, and it's dangerous. Man Bao nodded, let's plant the land. When I look back, I find the grape seeds. Let's go home to plant grapes and then make wine. In the past few days, Friday Lang has been listening to Man Bao talking about winemaking a lot. At first, he was very confident and very happy, and he even asked Mr. Zhuang specially. Then his enthusiasm was extinguished after asking, and he felt that Man Bao was too unreliable, so he said, forget it, the grape seeds don't even see a shadow, it's better to grow medicinal herbs. This year, eldest brother they rectified the second brother's mountain again, and planted a lot of privet girls on the mountain. Man Bao was a little disappointed. Ligustrum is also fine. I asked the shopkeeper Zheng Da ligustrum is rarely cultivated, and most of them are picked wild. The yield is very unstable, and it is out of stock every year. Many are grown at home. If Yazoo can't eat it, you can bring it to the capital to sell it. Wu Wulang also nodded, yes, medicinal herbs are always sold without worry, just like food. What do you think our family can grow other than privet virgins? Red dates, Man Bao said without thinking. The raw ones are delicious, and the dried ones are also delicious. She was in the pharmacy, and the shopkeeper Zheng liked to give her red dates as snacks. Friday Lang got up and left. Man Bao sat in the back and waved, fifth brother, think about it, your mountain and the sixth brother's mountain are still empty. Friday Lang ran away. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 962. The old Zhou family hung the plaque and covered it with a red cloth. On the 20th day, all the ingredients and drinks were prepared. Saturday Lang also took 2 nephews and a niece to stew a lot of things. Les steamed buns, and simmered in a large pot of broth. In the early morning of the 21st, the aroma of the broth wafted out, and the aroma of their ingredients wafted from the 3 or 4 shops around. Zhou Lijun had prepared the pen and ink and abacus at the counter early on. This was a job she grabbed from her brother and brother. She was not even robbed by Wu Lang himself, and she was finally determined to be the accountant. Then, according to the orderly arrangement of elders and children, Friday Lang led the shopkeeper, and Saturday Lang was naturally the chef. Zhou Lizhong and Zhou Liwei could only be buddies and part-time cooks. Saturday Lang felt that Zhou Liwei and Zhou Lijun were all like the old Zhou family, except that they were all like the second sister-in-law in terms of cooking talent. Unfortunately, Zhou Lizhong was not like the sister-in-law in this respect. But he was taller than the short ones. On Saturday, Lang chose to choose, and finally chose Zhou Lizhong to stay in the kitchen to help him more. After knowing that, Man Bao volunteered himself, rolled up his sleeves and said, "Sixth brother, I'm busy that day, I can also help in the kitchen. Saturday Lang looked at her for a while and said, forget your words, you will also set fire to it. What's wrong with the fire? Do you despise the fire? You know that cooking and cooking must be done well. Bai Erlang said, I can also set fire to it. Then are you here to help? Bai Erlang immediately returned to his senses and shook his head, forget it, I'll help you greet the guests at the front, but I can help you serve the dishes, I'm good at this. That being said, the old Zhou family didn't really ask the guests to serve food and water. In fact, so many of them are indeed busy enough, and it's okay to be slower. In the early morning of July 21st, the backyard of Zhuji restaurant was busy. The three man Bao jumped out of the carriage and waved to Daji, rushed into the backyard like calves, took a deep breath and said, okay. Fragrant. Saturday Lang smiled, opened a steamer and said, I made big meat buns, do you want to eat them? Although they had already eaten breakfast, the three of them still swallowed and nodded. On Saturday, Lang served them a bowl of soup and picked up 6 big meat buns for them to put on the table. The steamed buns were still warm, and the juice overflowed slightly when you took a bite. The minced meat and the softness of the white noodles were mixed together, which was especially delicious. Man Bao exhaled contentedly and asked, Sixth brother, don't we sell breakfast food? It's too late today, and it will be sold tomorrow. Today, the big meat buns are for guests. How are you eating? Man Bao nodded fiercely, delicious. Saturday Lang didn't pay much attention to Man Bao's opinion, mainly she said that everything she ate was delicious, and he looked at Bai Shan and Bai Erlang. Bai Shan and Bai Erlang also nodded, it's really delicious. Saturday Lang was more confident and said happily, that's good, our store will use this to send customers off today, and we will start selling breakfast food tomorrow. Mr. Zhuan counted the auspicious time, and Lu Gui and the others arrived a little earlier. They had just sat down on the second floor when the shopkeeper Zheng came with a group of people, including Dr. Gu and Dr. Tao. In the pharmacy, only Dr. Ding was left on duty, and even the shopkeeper Xiao Zheng came. In addition to them, the shopkeeper Zheng also invited several of his friends to help them warm up. Man Bao was very happy and invited them to the second floor. Mr. Zhuang has not met shopkeeper Zheng De yet, but this time he just happened to meet him. The shopkeeper Zheng De knew from Dr. Ji that Man Bao had a teacher. She listened to him very much, so she wanted to meet him. This was indeed one of the reasons why he came to Nuanpu this time. The two smiled and bowed their hands to each other, got to know each other, and then sat down to talk together. Man Baoke greeted them, and a new guest came downstairs. She looked down and saw Bai Erlang leading his classmates in. I was still invited to the second floor. Bai Shan only invited 3 Feng Zonping, Peng Zhiru, and Lu Xiaofo, who came a little later, but also came at an auspicious time. All the distinguished guests were invited to sit on the second floor. The shopkeeper Zheng did not expect that they also invited students from the Imperial College. After greeting him politely, he watched Wu Lang, who was downstairs, continue to pick up the guests in the lobby. There are vegetable farmers he has met in the past few days, there are butchers who specialize in killing pigs and selling meat, and the owner of the shop on the same street. As soon as the auspicious time arrived, the sound of firecrackers sounded, and a group of people stood under the door to watch the excitement. Man Bao was so happy that he slapped his palms red, and also followed the onlookers and shouted "Oh oh." Wu Lang was just about to look for her, but he turned his head and couldn't find her. He heard a voice and then pulled him forward and said, Man Bao, you are lucky, you are about to pull the red cloth. Man Bao stretched out his hand and grabbed the red cloth and pulled it down fiercely. The plaque was exposed, and everyone cheered. Wu Lang stepped forward and said to the onlookers, today, our Zhuji restaurant is open, and everyone who comes in to eat will be given a gift. A big meat bun. The onlookers bowed their hands in return, and those who wanted to eat would go into the store, and those who didn't want to eat would turn around and leave. Many people like to go to the newly opened shop to eat, because the newly opened shop will deliver the food on the same day, which is cheap and affordable. But there are also many people who are not so confident in the newly opened shop. Wu Wu Lang introduced some guests who were willing to come in for dinner and guided them to their seats. Zhou Liwei ran to entertain them, reported the name of the dishes, and took a note to write down the menu. No way, his memory is not so good, he can only take the note and write down the serial number. Man Bao went to the back kitchen to help, and Saturday Lang prepared the meal and put it on the table. Zhou Lishong brought it out the same way, and the speed of serving was okay. After all, Saturday Lang has worked in the Jiwei restaurant, and he is very familiar with the kitchen. He is very familiar with this kind of busy work. Zhou Lishong and the others are a little bit slower, but they always remember what Saturday Lang said, prefer to be calm and not anxious, so they did not go all the way. What went wrong? Food was also delivered on the second floor. Mr. Zhuang greeted the shopkeeper Zhengda and others on behalf of Manbao, Bai Shan greeted his friends, and Bai Erlang also greeted his classmates. It's just that everyone is a student of Quazijian, and they are divided into 2 tables, and now they just get together to talk. Feng Zonping, the 3 of them are seniors, and the topic quickly revolved around them. Feng Zonping was a self-acquaintance from the beginning, but when someone talked to him, he said more, and in a short while, everyone at the 2 tables was familiar with each other. Both Peng Zhiru and Lu Xiaofo were a little introverted. They didn't expect Bai Shan to invite them. The main reason was that Bai Shan was more introverted than them, and he didn't like talking to others in the class. But the 3 of them were together after all, and they had the same situation when they entered the Quazi Academy, so even if they were not familiar with Bai Shan, they would come as soon as he invited him. It was only when I came here that I found out that apart from Feng Zongping's 3 seniors, the 2 of them were actually the only classmates Bai Shan had invited. He also got 2 points closer to Bai Shan. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 963. Feng Zonping drank the wine, looked left and right, looked at Bai Shan, and asked, "Where's Miss Zhou?" "In the kitchen." Feng Zonping nodded with a smile and asked, "Is this shop cooperating with the 3 of you, or did she open it alone?" Bai Shan said, "Her family is single, what's wrong?" "It's nothing, I just think it's amazing. Few foreigners who have just entered the capital can open a shop in the capital. Moreover, the downstairs was very happy, and there was not a single person who came to ask for trouble. His grandfather is now the Minister of the Ministry of Justice, and he was the Minister of the Ministry of Justice earlier. He grew up in the capital. He heard a lot of cases from his grandfather, big and small, among which the most common ones in the capital are fighting. Brawl." Feng Zonping looked at Bai Shan curiously. Didn't he say that the Bai family had no backers, only Bai Qi was a hero? Not to mention the week is full. Speaking of Zhou Man, Feng Zonping just remembered that he didn't seem to have asked Zhou Man's family background. Could it be that their family is the one with the better family background? Feng Zonping was about to ask again, but Man Bao had already finished helping in the back kitchen. After washing his face and hands, he ran upstairs to greet the shopkeeper Zheng. The shopkeeper Zhengda greeted her with a smile. "Your family's food is good, it's a good meal, I think business will be good in the future." Man Bao grinned and cupped his hands. "Thank you, storekeeper Ji Yan, are you eating well?" "Okay, it's rare to eat food with such a strong Sichuan flavor anymore, especially today I got to know someone like Mr. Zhuang." Shopkeeper Zhengda and Mr. Zhuang exchanged business with Mr. Zhuang without a word. Man Bao listened. After they exchanged words, He entertained everyone. Of course, she can't drink, but she can use tea instead of wine. A toast to everyone. From shopkeeper Zhengda and their table to the table on Guozijian's side, Bai Erlang's classmates didn't know Man Bao, neither did Peng Zhiru and Lu Xiaofo, but Feng Zonping did. He greeted Man Bao warmly. Then he asked, "Last time you said that you had a friend who was very similar. Who is he?" Man Bao didn't expect that he still remembered this matter, and asked, "Why do you have to know who he is?" "If I don't ask clearly, I won't be able to fall asleep," Feng Zonping said. "I listen to you, I actually know that person? But I don't seem to have the impression." After thinking about it, Man Bao said, "You really know me?" When Man Bao said this, he smiled brightly and said happily, "Does Tang He know him?" Feng Zonping, Yun Xingxuan and Yi Ziang. Man Bao was even more happy when he saw their expressions, and asked, "Do you know each other?" Feng Zonping only felt his throat tighten. He coughed lightly and asked, "How did you recognize Senior Tang?" "We used to study in Yizhu City, what do you think?" Feng Zonping turned around and asked Yun Xingxuan, "Is Senior Tang going to Yizhu?" Yun Xingxuan, "It seems so." Feng Zonping sighed, "No wonder. No wonder she was able to pit her back, she must have been pitted by Senior Tang before, and..." Feng Zonping glanced at Zhuji restaurant, which was doing well in business and was safe, and asked with a smile, "You two have a good relationship?" Man Bao said, "General, General." Feng Zonping didn't believe it. After returning home, he asked people to ask why no one went to the newly opened Zhuji restaurant today. After a while, the servant came back and said, "I asked the gangster on the street, and said that the steward of the Yang family had said that the Zhuji restaurant was covered by their family, so no one dared to do so." Find trouble. The Yang family? Isn't it the Tang family? Which Tang family is the young master talking about? I didn't know any Tang family. Feng Zonping asked, "Which Yang family is it?" "The Yang family in Wutong Lane." Feng Zonping was surprised, and after being silent for a while, he remembered that the Yang family's brother Yang seemed to have gone to Mianzhou. Feng Zonping tapped his head, "They know enough people." "Master, did Zhuji restaurant offend you? Would you like to explain to the yamen who patrolled the streets?" Feng Zonping waved his hand and said, "Don't talk nonsense, it's a restaurant opened by a friend, I just want to ask more, it's fine." The servant understood as soon as he heard it, and immediately smiled, "Little one understands, the little one will spread the word, saying that their shop is also covered by our house, and those hooligans are not allowed to seek trouble." Feng Zonping, "No, you misunderstood, I didn't mean it." But seeing the smile on the servant's face, Feng Zonping couldn't say what he refused. He couldn't say that he didn't know this friend very well, right? He waved his hand and let him down. The next person went down to pass the message. As a result, Zhuji restaurant got on the right track at a very fast speed, and every day I had to worry about buying vegetables, meat, cooking, and attracting customers. In addition, they have never encountered any of the various problems encountered by other newly opened stores. After 3 or 4 days of busy work, fewer people have been flocking to the restaurant to eat, so Wu Lang and the others found time to calculate the general ledger for the past 4 days. Before, they were all too tired. They got up early, went to bed late, and basically fell asleep after lying on the bed. They didn't have time to calculate the ratio of expenses to income. From the account book, they made the most money in the 2 days of opening. The guests invited on the opening day were given to He Yin, and there were many strangers who came to eat. On the second day, there were even more, but Wu Wulang felt that these people were not ordinary guests. Most of them were from nearby colleagues, but he also made a lot of money from them. And the door of the store is wide open, so that people outside can see so many people in the lobby, and it looks like the food is well done, so it also attracts many guests. Zhou Lejun settled the account, looked at the money again, and nodded with satisfaction. I still earned it, not counting the cost of the house. Friday Lang said, that's considered labor. Zhou Lejun deducted it according to the current labor cost, and nodded, I earn a lot, 60%. Then it's not much if you count the rent. There will definitely be fewer people as you go forward. It depends on how the repeat customers are during this period. Friday Lang slapped the hammer and said, but I'm exhausted, and the business is good and there is business. Good difficulty. Zhou Lejun closed the ledger and asked, my aunt said she was looking for a way to make wine recently. When she finds it, should we make wine in our family? Let's talk when she finds it. Zhou Lejun is still very confident in the little ant, and said, the little ant asked Bai Shan to go to the imperial prison to look for books, and she took time to go to the bookstore to find it. I think the little ant is very obsessed with this. Wu Wulang had a headache. You said that she has never drunk wine, why do you want to make wine so much? Zhou Lejun said, my aunt said that she saw a poem in a book, which was about wine, and it was very well written. People back. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 964. Friday Lang asked, what do you mean? Zhou Lejun shook his head. My aunt said that when she saw this poem, she had both pride and sadness in her chest, but she was more relieved from laughing at the situation, so she also wanted to make wine. Saturday Lang was confused. Shouldn't it be because you want to drink? Zhou Lejun said, my aunt said that there is no wine in the world that is not bitter. Although she doesn't like sweets very much, she definitely doesn't like bitter ones, so wine, just brew it, smell the aroma, and let it be drunk. Someone else have a drink. Crowd. Saturday Lang hesitated, can she make it? Impossible, said Friday Lang, I've already asked Mr. Zhuang. Only aristocratic families and a few wineries know how to make this wine, and the wines made by our people from the Jin dynasty are far inferior to those made by people from the western regions. Don't say how rare those grapes are. Do you know how much a pound of grapes cost? Do you know how much a bottle of wine this small costs? Wu Wulang suddenly paused when he said this, and then he figured it out, and waved his hand happily. Forget it, she can't find a way to brew anyway, and if she finds it, she won't be able to get grape seeds, so let her go. In order not to have too much time to toss them. Several people didn't expect fifth brother, fifth uncle, to be so bad, but after thinking about it, they felt that what he said was reasonable, so they silently said nothing. Man Bao didn't know anything about this. She asked Keek to help her search and found some brewing materials, but the skills and sophistication were beyond what she could do in this era, so she still had to search in this world, or find other search terms, and ask Keek to help you search. At the same time, she also thought about the seeds, but Keek told her regretfully that there will be no grapes in the future world, not even varieties. Man Bao can only rely on his own efforts to find in the moment. This kind of thing can't be rushed, and Man Bao won't be in a hurry. She still goes to the pharmacy every morning to see a doctor to learn medical skills to accumulate experience, and come back in the afternoon to have a class with Mr. Zhuang. Early this morning, not long after she put her things away, Mrs. Do came in with a young man and a woman. Man Bao looked up at them, and Mrs. Do smiled and said, I'm sorry, Dr. Zhou, this is the patient I told you about, do you remember? Man Bao glanced at the stinky young man, nodded and said, remember, please sit down. The little daughter-in-law stood aside holding her hands, timidly not moving. The young man frowned and said to her, what are you doing, sit down. Man Bao looked up at him, and when Mrs. Do saw it, she reached out and patted him, why are you yelling at your daughter-in-law? Speak well. The young man kept his mouth shut. Man Bao looked at Mrs. Do and said, go out first, I'll show them. Mrs. Do gave the young man a warning look before turning around and going out. There were 2 stools in the room. Man Bao motioned for the couple to sit down, opened the book and asked, "What's their names?" The young man glanced at her book, frowned and said, "Does this still have to be named?" "It's just a name, you can also report a fake one." Man Bao raised his chin and asked, "What do you want to be called?" Anyway, what they want to buy is not illegal drugs, and they don't need to remember their real names, and the yamen will not check them. The young man blushed, moved uneasily and said, "Then call me Do Dalan." Man Bao wrote Do Dalan's name on it, and specially marked the pseudonym on the back. Then he looked at the little daughter-in-law, and the little daughter-in-law whispered, "My name is Lu Niang." Man Bao nodded, wrote Lu Niang's name, and asked, "How long have you been married?" Lu Niang's voice was low, and she whispered, 3 years. Man Bao motioned her to put her hand on the pulse pillow and asked her some private questions, such as whether her menstrual period was on time, how many days each time she came, etc. Man Bao took a pulse, looked at her face and tongue coating again, turned his head and looked at Do Dalan. "Take your hand out and I'll take a look." Do Dalan frowned and stretched out his hand. Man Bao asked him questions while taking his pulse. At this moment, Do Dalan's face was blue and red, his face seemed to be on fire, and he couldn't answer. It was Lu Niang who answered in a low voice and cautiousness, mainly because the questions asked by Man Bao were too embarrassing. It didn't sound like a girl asked this question at all, even if it was a very old male doctor in the past. "Will ask." These questions were all prepared by Man Bao long ago, and they were what teacher Mo wanted to ask. They think this is a reliable problem. There is no way. In the future, there will be no such troubles in the world. The survival rate of their sperm is not high, so they don't want to have children, or they can apply for a set of sperm in the sperm bank. Few people worry about childbirth. How many people still don't want to give birth, if not to complete the task? Man Bao wrote them down one by one, recording them in great detail, and then stretched out his hand to feel Do Dalan's pulse and thought. Do Dalan looked at the frightened heart, and Man Bao raised his eyes to look at him and said, "Don't be so afraid, the problem is not that big." Lu Niang raised her head in surprise. Do Dalan asked in a trembling voice, "Me, my question." Man Bao thought about it for a while, and felt that both of them had problems. Lu Niang was a little weak in Gonghan, but it was not very serious. Many women had such a condition, but Do Dalan's problem was more serious. Man Bao retracted his hand, clicked on the notebook and said, "Both of you, please take care of yourself, especially you, relax, you are still young, and things like children can't come in a hurry, so let's go with the fate." Do Dalan has not listened to these words less frequently in the past 3 years, but he has always heard from his elders, neighbors, and Lu Niang, and told him, this is the first time. He was in a somewhat delicate mood. Man Bao buried his head in writing the recipe, and when he looked up to see them panicking, he thought about putting down his pen to communicate with them. "I don't think your illness is very serious, Niang Lu is just a little frail, and if you want to have a good child in the future, you still have to take care of it, you." Do Dalan raised his heart. Man Bao said, "How do you say it? Your kidneys are weak, do you understand what I'm saying?" Do Dalan nodded, then immediately shook his head. "It's just weak, not dead, so there is still a cure. I'll prescribe medicine for you first, take it for half a month and see cure." Before Do Dalan could speak, Lu Niang, who was beside him, nodded again and said, "We will treat it as the doctor says we will treat it." Man Bao nodded, and then continued to write the prescription. "You should take the medicine for a month and it is almost enough, and the rest should pay attention to your diet." Do Dalan estimates that he will take the medicine for about 3 months, and do not have sex within a month. "I'll let you know when I can have sex." The couple both blushed. Man Bao handed them the 2 written prescriptions. Lu Niang handed the prescription to Do Dalan, hesitantly did not go out. Do Dalan glanced at her and went out with the prescription first. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 965. Lu Niang waited for her to leave before she blushed and asked Man Bao, Dr. Xiaozhou, is it really my husband's problem? Man Bao nodded, yes. Lu Niang breathed a sigh of relief and asked, can that really be cured? Man Bao said, it stands to reason that it can be cured by following the doctor's advice, but I can't guarantee that you will be able to conceive a child. This kind of thing depends on fate. Lu Niang really wanted to get a definite answer from Man Bao, but seeing that Man Bao didn't want to say any more, she could only ask another question she wanted to ask, Dr. Zhou, what should we pay more attention to on weekdays? Man Bao likes such patients the most, because they will take the initiative to ask about the condition, and they will definitely cooperate very well, so she said in detail that men and women have their own precautions. Lu Niang wrote it all down, and confirmed it again. After making sure she wrote it all down, she thanked her and left. Do Dalan had already paid for the medicine and waited outside. As soon as his wife came out, he hurried forward and asked, what did the doctor say? Lu Niang whispered, the doctor said that it can be cured, but there are many things that need to be paid attention to. She told her husband carefully what she had written down just now. After hearing this, Do Dalan felt a lot more at ease, and his trust in this doctor also increased. A new patient entered Man Bao's clinic. Man Bao motioned for her to sit down and took her pulse. 20 days have passed, and the story that there is a young doctor in Jishitang who is a female doctor has already spread throughout the city. Therefore, most of the female patients who come to Jishitang to see a doctor recently will be lined up outside Man Bao's clinic. And because she has a good reputation, she has cured many patients, and it has been passed down from 10 to 10 in the market. Recently, the number of female patients who come here to see her for medical treatment has increased, and she even robbed women from several nearby pharmacies. Patient. Therefore, Man Bao gradually became busy, and the time for seeing a doctor in the morning was basically filled. Therefore, in order to better communicate medical skills, Man Bao mostly eats lunch in the pharmacy, and communicates with Dr. Ding and the others while eating, and occasionally brings out some cases to communicate with them. What Man Bao wanted to talk about at noon today was Do Dalan's case. She said, I saw a patient. His complexion was dark, his tongue coating was white, and his pulse was. After describing Do Dalan's situation, he expressed his own judgment and asked, Dr. Ding, do you think my judgment is correct? Dr. Ding said, it's true that the kidney is deficient. How do you judge that he is weak? Man Bao shared the question she asked at the time with what Lu Niang answered. Dr. Ding and Dr. Tao looked strange, and the shopkeeper Xiao Zhang, who was still bowing his head to eat, directly sprayed the rice in his mouth. Dr. Gu, who was sitting opposite him, quickly covered his face with the dustpan that was holding the medicinal herbs, but the rice that was sprayed over blocked it, and the medicinal herbs dried in the dustpan fell on Dr. Gu's face. Man Bao turned his head to look at Dr. Gu with a look of surprise, his face full of disbelief. Shopkeeper Xiao Zhang coughed violently. He stood up and patted off the scattered rice grains. He reached out and grabbed Dr. Gu to help him clean it up, but he couldn't hold back the violent cough. Some grains of rice were sprayed out of his nose. On the face of Dr. Gu. Dr. Gu, Dr. Ding and Dr. Tao tried their best to hold back their laughter. One went to pat the back of shopkeeper Xiao Zhang, and the other went to clean up the medicinal materials for Dr. Gu. Man Bao was stunned on the spot with his eyes wide open, and he quickly stepped forward to help when he reacted. Shopkeeper Xiao Zhang waved his hands again and again, and when he finally came over, he saluted Dr. Gu again and apologized. Dr. Gu shook his hand, quite used to it. I don't blame you, I don't blame you. He looked at Man Bao, looked her up and down, and said after a long time, you are a girl, you are still such a young girl, why, how? ask such a topic? Manbao didn't have that sense of shame at this time, and she was taught by teacher Xiao Mo that in the eyes of doctors, patients are just patients, and there is no gender distinction. As doctors, what they have to do is to find their cause. Then fix it and return the patient to health. These questions are the questions that Manbao and Mr. Mo have worked out after consulting a lot of information. They didn't come to the door before, and Mrs. Do disappeared. She thought they didn't want to see a doctor, or they had already looking for another doctor to see it. I was very sorry for a while. She didn't think there was anything wrong with the questions she and teacher Mo came up with. But after all, she and teacher Mo are inexperienced, so she asked humbly, Dr. Gu, are we not asking enough details? Then what other questions should we ask? Dr. Gu, this is not detailed enough. You have even asked about other people's sexual affairs. He rubbed his forehead with a headache, and then aimed at Dr. Ding and Dr. Tao. Dr. Ding smiled and said, it's detailed enough, even we couldn't think of such detail. Even if they ask such detailed questions, the patients won't tell them if it's okay. Maybe they will be beaten up in the end, thinking that the doctor is so easy to do. However, why would a patient with such a problem tell Manbao? The shopkeeper Xiao Zheng was also very confused. The four of them looked down at Manbao, met her ignorant eyes, and then looked at her small face and small head. She looked like a child at all. Dr. Ding frowned, isn't this a bad person? Dr. Gu also frowned and asked Manbao, who is that patient? Then I can't tell you, I promised them not to say anything. Shopkeeper Xiao Zheng asked sensitively, they? Yeah, it's him and his wife. 4 people, his wife is also there. Manbao nodded, yes, both of them are ill, so they came to see them together, but the husband's illness is the focus. The 4 of them breathed a sigh of relief at the same time. Manbao glanced at Dr. Gu and asked, Dr. Gu, shopkeeper Xiao Zheng, are you all right? The 2 immediately said, it's all right, it's all right. That's good, what do you think about my illness? Dr. Gu and Dr. Tao looked at Dr. Ding together, they didn't know each other very well. Dr. Ding thought for a while, and asked the question carefully again. He nodded and said, it sounds really weak. What prescription did you give him? Manbao was already prepared, and immediately took out the recipe and showed it to Dr. Ding. Dr. Ding did some identification and found nothing wrong, but he was not very familiar with the disease, so he could give Manbao limited advice. He could only tell Manbao the properties of these medicines that he knew. This is the second time Manbao has seen this kind of disease, but it is the first time to treat it, but before that, she and her 5th sister-in-law's grandfather, Dr. Lu, discussed it. After all, her ex-brother-in-law was in a similar situation. However, the old Dr. Lu said that her ex-brother-in-law was completely dead and could not be cured. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 966. This prescription was prescribed by Manbao herself, and she did not refer to any prescriptions, so she was still not confident enough. Dr. Ding affirmed her prescription, first adjust the kidney deficiency, this prescription is correct. Anyway, the other party also has kidney deficiency, and no matter what he eats, he will not get sick. As for how to treat weak essence, he does not know. Not only did the 3 doctors not know about Dr. Ding, but even the shopkeeper Zhengde, who had just returned to the pharmacy, did not know about it, but he also looked at Manbao's prescription and didn't think there was anything wrong with what she prescribed, so he handed it back to her and said, since you want to cure it, then cure it. Anyway, kidney deficiency is also to be treated. Manbao thought that they thought her prescription was good, and became happy, and decided to discuss the treatment plan with teacher Mo in detail at night. They didn't know the patient's condition before, but now they have made a medical case, just in time to discuss in detail. Man Bao finished discussing with them, and seeing that there was nothing to do, she packed her things and left. Before she went out, she heard the clang outside. She looked outside curiously and asked, "Did someone hold a wedding?" "No," the shopkeeper Zheng De said with a smile, "it's the king of Yizhu who has returned to Beijing. This is in Qing Street. I just came back from the outer city, and the cleaning is going on outside. I didn't expect Qing to come to the inner city so soon. What do you want? Go back, you have to hurry now, the first team will come over in a while, and you will not be able to leave." "Is the king of Yizhu in the capital?" "Yeah, on the Queen Mother's birthday in September, the king of Yizhu has always been favored. He must go to Beijing early to celebrate the Queen Mother's birthday. Will you pass by here?" Meeting. Man Bao left in no hurry, put down the basket and said, "I'll go see the excitement." Some soldiers trotted forward with a gong and dang dang, followed by a group of soldiers, waving to let the people walking on the street avoid them and get out of the driveway. In the corner, the streets that were still lively suddenly quieted down. Everyone stopped under the eaves on both sides. Some people avoided directly to the shops next to them. The owner of the shop didn't chase people away. When people came in, they were allowed to stand or sit. After a while, a long gong sound of clang came, and a high voice came from a distance, "Avoid." There was a sound of hooves, and the 20-something came over riding a tall horse and protecting a red horse and 8 carriages. Man Bao stood on tiptoe and saw the king of Yizhu, who was riding in the middle. She had seen him on the Dragon Boat Festival last year, on the street. She also watched him be assassinated. Just thinking about it, the sound of hooves passing by the gate of Ji Shidhang, followed by the gurgle of the carriage, Man Bao smelled a bloody smell, very faint. Man Bao sniffed and looked intently at the carriage that passed in front of her. Man Bao asked Keek curiously, "Is there blood in the carriage that passed by just now?" After scanning, Keek said, "Yes, there are 2 people in the 5th carriage, unconscious and bleeding." "Hey, is that someone from their family?" Keek scanned again, paused and said, "It shouldn't be, it was the person who assassinated the king of Yizhu on the Dragon Boat Festival last year. One of them even stole something from their house." Man Bao narrowed his eyes slightly, staring at the carriage in surprise. Man Bao thought for a while, then turned around and went back to find shopkeeper Zheng De. "Master shopkeeper, do you think the people from the Yizhu royal mansion will seek medical treatment from us if they get sick?" "No," the shopkeeper Zheng continued to organize his medicinal materials without raising his head, and said, "There is an imperial doctor. What if someone is not very important?" Shopkeeper Zheng De raised his head to look at Man Bao, and smiled with her, "There is a doctor in the mansion. If you want to stand out, you have to study medicine well, and you will become famous in the future, and you will be invited to see a doctor. Maybe you can still be a female imperial doctor in the future." Man Bao felt that the expression on Zheng Da's face when he said this was not real at all, but she knew that although De Jin had a female doctor, there was no female imperial doctor. She doesn't want to be a doctor girl who can only stay in the capital, and she will be beheaded at any time, and she has to kneel to see a patient. It is better for her to be a female doctor outside. When Man Bao asked what he wanted to know, he waved goodbye to shopkeeper Zheng De. As soon as the pharmacy came out, the street quickly returned to its normal state. Those who should set up stalls, who should buy things, and those who should hurry. Daji didn't know where it came from, so he parked the carriage by the side of Ji Shidhang, and Man Bao saw him as soon as he came out. Man Bao climbed into the carriage and asked curiously, "Where did you hide just now?" Daji said, "In the alley." Man Bao nodded, and ran to Mr. Zhuang as soon as he got home. "Sir, do you see who I met on the street today?" "King of Yizhu." Man Bao was stunned. Sir, you know it without leaving home, it's amazing. Mr. Zhuang smiled and said, the gong is so loud outside, so I asked someone to go out and have a look and find out. It's not difficult. Man Bao sat opposite Mr. Zhuang, lowered his voice and said, then guess, who else did I see in King Yasu's motorcade? Mr. Zhuang asked with a smile, who? Two assassins. Mr. Zhuang frowned, assassin. Man Bao nodded again and again. Mr. Zhuang now knew everything. Before going to Beijing, Mr. Zhuang asked her to talk to Bai Shan. He would not stop them from doing anything, but he had to discuss with him before doing anything. Just do it. That's why Man Bao will immediately look for Mr. Zhuang as soon as he has a new discovery. Man Bao lowered his voice and said, it was the assassin who assassinated the king of Yasu on the street last year on the Dragon Boat Festival. Mr. Zhuang sat up straight and asked, how do you know? No, how did you recognize them? At that time, people were masked and covered tightly. How did the child recognize it? Man Bao can't be said to be recognized by Keek, right? After thinking about it, she said, I smelled that they smelled different, and they were injured, bleeding a lot, and were thrown into the carriage of the Yasu Wangfu. Sir, do you think they will die? Mr. Zhuang shook his head slowly, probably not. Since the king of Yasu brought them back to the capital, he should have wanted to know something from their mouths. They shouldn't die until they don't speak. But if the injury is serious, or the torture fails, it is not necessarily. He looked at Man Bao and was a little skeptical. How did you see people? The carriage passed by, the wind lifted the curtains, and I recognized the smell of blood and the smell on them. Mr. Zhuang stared at Man Bao's nose for a long time, then nodded half-heartedly. All you have to do now is study medicine, wait for the opportunity, and leave other things alone, you know. But after all, it was 2 lives. Man Bao was a little worried, but nodded. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 967. Bai Shan and Bai Erlang happily ran in with a book basket and told Man Bao, the king of Yasu has entered the capital. Man Bao sat behind the desk, raised his eyelids and glanced at them and said, I see, why are you so happy when he came to Beijing? Bai Shan said, aren't you waiting to sell flowers, are you not happy that he came to Beijing? Full of Beiyi's spirit, it was only then that she remembered that she was still waiting to earn the money of the king of Yasu. Bai Erlang laughed, when did your memory become so bad? Bai Shan asked, what happened? Man Bao glanced out, and then she told her about the 2 assassins she saw today. Bai Shan and Bai Erlang were stunned and said after a while, you're so lucky, aren't you? Man Bao asked, is this luck? Bai Shan nodded again and again, of course it's luck. The king of Yasu put people in a carriage and pretended to be family members to bring them back. Obviously he didn't want people to know about it, but you can see it all, it's not good luck. What's the use of seeing it? I can't save them. Bai Shan then said, if you saw it, it's equivalent to seeing Master Tang and Master Yang. When they saw it, it was equivalent to seeing old Master Tang and Master Wei. Man Bao was stunned for a moment, and finally woke up from her worries. She thought about it and said, Yang County Magistrate and they are too far away, we wrote to tell him, and he wrote back to Beijing to tell Lord Wei that they will take a long time. Ah! Bai Erlang, so we can tell Master Wei directly, Man Bao said, and then write to Master Yang and tell Master Tang that they are done. Bai Shan thought for a while and said, Lu Gui seems to know someone from the Wei family, and he did it for his grandmother to send letters to the Wei family several times. He turned around and sat behind his desk and said, you write a letter to the magistrate Tang and I will write to Lord Wei. Bai Erlang asked, what about me, what about me? Man Bao stretched out his hand to grind the ink and said, you can write to the magistrate Yang. Bai Erlang became happy, and he didn't speak to the magistrate Yang for a long time. This time, he happened to have a good talk with him. Bai Shan's letter was written first, mainly because he was always brief in writing, and he was not familiar with Master Wei. Man Bao, however, was a chatterbox. She wrote letters to the magistrate of Tang. She accidentally wrote too much, and she wrote in great detail. She said, I don't know what kind of hatred those people have with the king of Yizhu, but they assassinated them twice. But they should be from Yizhu, at least from Jianese deist, Master Tang. It is convenient for you to check more in Yizhu, maybe you can find other evidence of the king of Yizhu. Man Bao felt that if those people were not the dead men sent by other princes and ministers to kill the king of Yizhu because of competing interests, then it must be a personal vendetta. If they can force a group of people to kill a prince, they must have deep hatred. Such as her father killing feud with Bai Shan. Man Bao does not dislike many alliances at this moment. Bai Shan blew the letter, and after the ink dried, he sealed it in an envelope, and wrote the name of Mr. Wei on the envelope. When he looked up, he saw Man Bao and Bai Erlang were still writing, and he was a little curious and asked, What are you doing? How long have you been writing? Man Bao said, Wait a second, soon. Bai Erlang said, No hurry, I just made a start. Bai Shan. After a quarter of an hour, Man Bao, who said it was getting too fast, changed 2 sheets of paper, and was still working hard to write, while Bai Erlang, who was beside him, also wrote 4 pieces of letter paper, took out one and continued to write. He was particularly curious, so he leaned in to look at it. What the hell did you write? Man Baidao, I didn't write anything, just write about our current situation, and then ask the magistrate Tang to help take care of my 4th brother and them. After all, my 4th brother is mainly doing business in Yizhu city, right? Bai Shan looked at Bai Erlang. Bai Erlang said, I'm just talking to Magistrate Yang. The 2 of them raised their heads and asked Bai Shan, would you like to write them a few sentences too? Bai Shan felt a little itchy for a while, so he simply rolled up his sleeves and said, okay, I'll write a few of them too, and put them back together and send them back. When Man Bao saw that Bai Shan had written letters to both Tang and Yang, he even wrote a letter to the magistrate Yang. He also asked him to help take care of her home, so that the people of the king of Yizhu would not find out about their home. So, half an hour later, Daji received 6 thick letters, and Bai Shan said, call someone to send them back, and by the way, let's see when Grandma and the others go to Beijing. Daji looked at the 6 letters and asked, young master, do you only write letters to Magistrate Yang and the others, not to your family? As soon as the 3 heard it, they immediately turned around and went back to the study. Wait a minute, we'll be fine in a while. Daji was standing outside the study, waiting for 2/4 of an hour. The 3 of them took 3 thick letters and stuffed them into his hands. I'm sorry, Daji. Daji, it's not troublesome at all, it's not his home anyway. Because they wrote a lot of confidential content in such a letter, it is impossible to send it back through the post. What if they are so small and just happen to be opened for inspection? So Daji chose a person from the front yard and asked him to set off on a horse and go back to deliver the letter tomorrow. After writing the letter, the 3 of them were free, and Man Bao went to water her flowers and plants, and said in an eloquent manner, you guys should look good, be more aggressive, and come back and make a lot of money for me. At this time, the emperor was also looking at his sons, and he just finished checking their homework. Without a smile on his face, he was admonishing, I have hired such a good gentleman for you, but you have done your homework in a mess, you can't live up to your expectations. Anytime. The sons headed by the prince bowed their heads. The emperor was very unhappy. He was training hard. When someone from the palace came in carefully, he stopped talking and asked, what's the matter? Your Majesty, there is someone from the Queen Mother's palace. Please come over to have dinner with your highnesses and say that we want to have a reunion dinner. Since it was a reunion dinner, it was obvious that the Yazhuang family who had just entered Beijing was also there. The emperor slowly piled up his son's homework and asked, "How is the Queen Mother feeling?" The king of Xianan County just wrote a poem, and the Empress Dowager complimented her, and she is in a good mood. The Queen Mother was in a good mood, but the emperor was in a bad mood. He glared at his sons, got up and said, "Let's go, and greet the Queen Mother." Halfway down the road, the more the emperor thought about it, the more frustrated he became. He simply turned his head and said to Guzhong, "You go to the duty room to find Wei Qing, the Queen Mother's birthday. It's time for the various vassal kings to come to Beijing to celebrate their birthday. Let him write an imperial decree for each road. Let the feudal king enter the capital." Guzhong bent down and replied, "Yes." Entering the Queen Mother's palace, the king of Yazhu, who was enjoying himself with the Queen Mother, immediately got up from his mother's side, walked down quickly to greet him, bowed and saluted, "Brother Huang." The emperor smiled and stepped forward to support him, with a full smile on his face. "Why are your brothers polite? Hurry up and sit down." The Queen Mother waved again and again, "Yes, yes, sit down quickly. Second child, look, is the fifth child much thinner and older than the last time I saw him?" Next update around 4 p.m. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 968. Hearing the words, the emperor raised his eyes and looked at the grinning Yazhu king. He didn't realize that he was old and thin, but his face was ruddy, and he looked much better than him. But he still nodded. The Queen Mother sighed, "This child's fief has been cut in half, and his life is hard. You are his brother, and you don't say that you feel sorry for him." The emperor's eyebrows twitched. When did he cut half of it? Obviously only a third of it was cut. The emperor's face also showed distress, and he said to the Queen Mother, "Mother, wait a minute, the Qinhuiyan incident has just passed, and the tax has just been collected again this year. I heard that the disaster victims in Yazhu are not well settled, and the ministers are all there are many complaints. I am afraid it will be difficult to recover at this time. Wait another 2 years." The emperor looked at the king of Yazhu and said, "Fifth brother, when the disaster victims in Yazhu are settled, the imperial court will forget about it in 2 years, and I will reallocate the fief to you, or if you have a fancy, change a place." Ro. Before the king of Yazhu could speak, the Queen Mother quickly said, "Where did he get used to living in Yazhu? Where do you want me to tell him that you can give him a few counties and prefectures near Yazhu, so as not to exchange for it?" Still unsatisfied, the emperor smiled and nodded. Seeing his approval, the Queen Mother's face looked a little better, and she asked, "By the way, it has been more than 4 years since the flood. Why haven't the refugees been resettled? What do the governors and magistrates of Yazhu eat?" The emperor smiled and said, "The magistrate of Huiyang County is Tang Minghui's son. I read his papers. In the first 2 years, he wrote a letter saying that it is difficult to serve as an official in Huiyang County. The fields have all disappeared, and I don't know how to resettle the victims, so I apologize to me." The Queen Mother was silent for a while. She glanced at her younger son, and when she saw his head bowed, she turned her head and said to the emperor, "Tang Minghui's son is not as good as the crown, right?" "That's not true, there are 25 or 6. That's too small. Young people are not reliable in their work, and they will complain to you about the slightest thing. There are so many difficult things in this world, do you need the emperor to worry about it alone? Then what do they want their servants to do?" The emperor smiled and nodded. The mother said yes. The Queen Mother didn't want to continue on this topic. She was afraid that the more she talked, the more she would break down, so she turned to the topic of safety. She pointed at a young man and said, "Before you came, Xianan wrote a poem, and I read it very well. You also have a taste." Turning to see the prince and others, he smiled and said, "The princes also come and try to make a song." The prince doesn't like to write poetry, but the grandmother said so, can he still refuse? He glanced at his younger brothers. The third child, Lili, immediately leaned over and said happily, "Grandmother, what problem did you give the king of Xianan County?" "What is the name of the king of Xianan, the big brother?" the queen mother said angrily. "You are brothers, so don't be so polite in your own family." "Yes, yes, the imperial grandmother is right, what question did you give the big brother?" The emperor's face became better, he sat down on the seat, simply called the king of Yizhu to the next one to speak, and let the children go to the queen mother's place to play. Among his sons, the seventh prince who just learned to walk and talk and the sixth prince who just went to school, from the crown prince to the fifth prince, are the third ones who can write poetry. Sometimes the emperor himself was very puzzled, why did the sons he gave birth not look like him? When the queen pulled the princess of Yizhu into the door with a smile, the hall was lively. Lili wrote a good poem and was making the queen mother laugh. Brothers and cousins were complimenting each other, and it was a good time. If it wasn't for the emperor's desk pressing several papers to impeach the king of Yizhu, the queen would have thought that their family was so harmonious and warm. Although the queen mother loved the king of Yizhu very much and missed him very much, she wished to keep him by her side all the time, but after the king of Yizhu was too old, he was still a vassal king. At night, he still had to leave the palace. The Empress Dowager regretfully asked the king of Yizhu to lead his wife and children out, but left the Princess Yunfan in the palace. "Anyway, you have to come to the palace tomorrow, so leave her and let her talk to my old lady." The Princess Yunfan took the Empress Dowager's arm and smiled and said, "I also like the imperial grandmother, and I want to stay and take care of the imperial grandmother." The Princess of Yizhu said angrily, "It's fine if you don't make trouble for your grandmother, how can you take care of it?" "Who said that? As long as she is with me, she will be very happy," the queen mother smiled and said, "This tea and water delivery will be done by the palace staff." "Is there still a lack of servants in our palace?" The queen lowered her head. 3 years ago, because the floods in Yizhu continued to be serious, the queen and the emperor decided to release a group of palace servants after consultation. At that time, the queen mother was a little unhappy. Guo Zixu was well informed, so Bai Shan came back within 2 days and told Man Bao, the emperor has ordered the other princes to come to the capital as well. As August is approaching, they should arrive before the Mid-Autumn Festival, and the capital will be very lively by then. He said, "I heard people say that the Yizhu Palace was very lively yesterday. Many relatives and friends came to reminisce about the old times. Someone said that the Princess of Yizhu chose a good day on the first day of the 8th lunar month to entertain relatives and friends. You want to sell flowers? Why don't I ask Lu Gui to help you find out?" Man Bao shook his head, "No, my fifth brother now buys for restaurants. I know a lot of people, so I asked him to inquire." Bai Shan glanced at the flowers outside and asked, "Do you want to sell so many flowers to the Yizhu Wangfu?" "That's not true. If you sell so much, how much does it cost to hold a feast for their family? You can't pluck the wool for a moment. You have to wait and sow it again when it grows again. Bai Shan, have you ever thought about switching to another lamb chop? Let's wait until the other princes and princes enter the capital, and then I will sell them if I don't like them." Man Bao snorted, "My family, the king of Yizhu is such a bad person, and the others will sell to them. There must be some bad ones." Although Bai Shan thought she was too arbitrary, he wasn't talking about that at the moment. What he was curious about was, "What's wrong with your flowers? I think they look pretty good, so why choose someone who doesn't look good to you?" Man Bao coughed lightly, rolled his eyes, and whispered to him, "I have only one problem with this flower, that is, I don't know what it will look like in a year, 2 or 3 years. Why are people willing to buy rare flowers at high prices?" Because he bought a pot, as long as he doesn't raise the dead and the disabled, he can have such a pot of rare flowers in a few years, and even one pot becomes 2 pots, and 2 pots become 4 pots? Or breed varieties into other flowers? Her genes are unstable, and it can be guaranteed that it cannot be guaranteed in the future, so it is better to sell it to people who don't like it, especially those who have done bad things. I stayed up late last night, overslept my nap. Next update is around 8 p.m. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 969. Bai Shan turned his head to look carefully at the pots of beautiful flowers under the porch, and was speechless for a while. Sure enough, all beautiful flowers are flawed. Who said that? In the words book you gave me, one of them said so. There were too many things written in the book. Man Bao didn't go into it. She walked over and picked out several pots of flowers. She picked out 2 pots of flowers that looked the most wealthy and rare, and 1 pot of chrysanthemums. A pot of ancient roses. She said, I'll sell them these 2 pots. The chrysanthemums have not yet bloomed, but they already have buds, and they will bloom after a few days of raising them. In ancient times, there was a large rose in a pot, and there were about 10 large buds on each plant. At this time, 2 roses had opened. Others are half open. The authentic big red, anyway, looks like Man Bao is very fond of. Mr. Zhuang also said that this color is very positive. These days they are all admiring this ancient rose. But Man Bao gave was not at all distressed, because among all the flowers, this pot cost the least points. Man Bao also asked Bai Shan, you can help me choose a nicer name, and hang it up at that time. It's also very good to talk about it, and it looks very valuable. Wasn't the name that was taken out called by the people of Yazhu's palace? Bai Shan was not very willing, and said casually, isn't the Mid-Autumn Festival coming soon? This flower can be taken out and viewed again after the Mid-Autumn Festival, so let's call Chang'e Flying to the Moon. Man Bao thought about it for a while and felt that the name was good. He gave a thumbs up and said, you are much better at naming names than I am. Bai Shan smiled and greeted her falsely, where? The 2 of them were watering the flowers while talking, and Man Bao asked, did you help me find the recipe for making wine? No, Bai Shan said, I didn't see it in the library. I also asked Feng Zonping, but he doesn't know much about this kind of miscellaneous books. He has been in the Imperial College for a few years, and it's not as good as the month I went there. Woolen cloth. However, I didn't find the recipe for making wine, but I found 3 recipes for making wine. I've copied them down and I'll bring them back to you. Man Bao felt that brewing was a waste of food, so she nodded her head. Anyway, she didn't need it now. She wrote it down, and she can use it for future generations when she has more food. Books, collections are always right. Have you made friends? No. Bai Shan paused and said, Peng Zhiru and Lu Xiaofo can't make friends either. So it's not his fault that he doesn't make friends. Man Bao glanced at him and knew his character. He didn't force him to make friends, but he still said, be kind to people, don't quarrel with them. Understood, I won't quarrel. After he finished speaking, Bai Erlang ran in from the outside sweating profusely. Bai Shan, did you quarrel with Yin or from your class today? Man Bao. Bai Shan. Bai Shan glared at Bai Erlang angrily, and said decisively, no. You're still lying. It's all over to us. You and Yin or quarreled in class. Bai Shan said, that's not called arguing, then distinguish. Can I not know how to quarrel and argue? You and Man Bao have been arguing since childhood. I heard people say that you talk about Yin or so that your face turns blue and eyes are red in get out of class. The desk was overturned, and I cried myself. People in the school said that you were the one who scolded people and cried. Bai Shan, he scolds me first, and I didn't scold him. It's just a sarcasm. When he fights with Man Bao, he doesn't miss the book bag and scolds. How could he know that he is not as good as a girl? Bai Erlang looked at Man Bao. Look, did I say he cursed? Bai Shan couldn't help but stretch out his foot to kick him, and reiterated, I didn't scold him. Bai Erlang jumped back, dodged flexibly, and shouted, I didn't scold me, so why are you kicking me? He said, did you know that Yin or family has 6 sisters, and he is the only seedling in the family? When I came back, Chiao Tao told me that you should be careful when you go to school tomorrow, and don't be blocked by his sisters outside school. Superior. Man Bao was stunned. I quarreled, but I still have to call my family. It's not uncommon for this kind of thing. Not long after entering school in April, Yin or was beaten by Lu Huan from your Kuaza school. As a result, Lu Huan was blocked by Yin Or's 3 sisters on the way. Lu Huan lost a lot of face. Did they fight, or did they fight? Not at all, Bai Erlang thought for a while, and he was puzzled. He scratched his head, I heard that they talked together, but it's shameful. Man Bao also breathed a sigh of relief and patted Bai Shan on the shoulder, letting him do his own thing. However, she was also a little unhappy. When I fight with you, my brothers will never come to trouble you. How can there be a small fight that can't be fought, and a big one who comes out to find a place? It's not a fierce fight. Bai Shan said angrily, didn't you say you never fight? Man Bao, who am I fighting for? Bai Shan snorted and didn't take this matter seriously. He didn't think that Yin Or's sisters would come to him, just arguing a few words in class. As for? Who knows, the next day their carriage was stopped by a carriage not long after they took to Main Street. When Daji saw the carriage that suddenly came out, he subconsciously clenched the reins, and was about to let the carriage back out of the way, when another carriage was blocked behind him. A street lane was blocked. Daji tensed his back, put his hand on a wooden board beside him, and pressed it slightly. The board loosened slightly before he took out the sword inside. Come out. Daji pressed the wooden board and paused the action. Man Bao shouted at the carriage, hey, how did you drive the carriage? Do you know that this is illegal? Drivers. The person in the car who was about to speak. A soft cough sounded, and then a soft female voice asked, is this the Bai family's carriage? Man Bao responded quickly, yes, please give up your carriage, this has blocked the whole street, everyone is in a hurry to go to work and school, look at how much the 2 ends are blocked. People. The 3 carriages were silent for a while, and the nearby onlookers watched Le, some of whom recognized Man Bao, and immediately responded in a loud voice, yes, yes, this has blocked the whole road, what can we do? Are you walking? In a car that was also blocked, the teenager stuck his head out of the car, and immediately became excited after seeing the 3 carriages. He climbed to the front and pushed his driver, and whispered, shout. The driver didn't dare, and the young man was so angry that he punched him and said, hurry up and shout according to what my father taught you, or I'll go home and tell my grandmother that your car was not good enough, and it hit me. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 970. Chapter 969 Quarrel. The coachman took a deep breath and closed his eyes as if at home and shouted, whose carriage is so rampant, it directly blocks the entire road and blocks so many people. Is there any sense of courtesy and integrity? Satisfied, the boy snorted and retreated into the car. After this shout, the 3 carriages suddenly quieted down, but the surroundings became noisy, and they all shouted, yes, yes, we still have to cross the road, how can we go when the road is blocked? Originally, early in the morning, either to go to work or to go to school, especially school. This road is the main road leading to Kuazajian. In the early morning, at least half of the students of 6th school who live outside need to cross this road to go to school. Not to mention the luxury of these 3 carriages, there is an emblem on the carriage, and anyone with a discerning eye will know who the carriage belongs to, so no one speaks. Naturally, everyone was not afraid, and immediately started talking. The carriage on the side of the Bai family's carriage moved, drove straight ahead, and blocked on another street, which was equivalent to giving up half the lane to others. Humanity in a carriage in front of Man Bao and the others said, "Is Bai Shan, a student of Kuaza school, in the car?" Man Bao opened his mouth to speak again, but Bai Shan held her down and said in a low voice, "I'm here, I don't know who you are, why are you blocking my way? I'm Yin Or's eldest sister. The three of us have something to say to young Master Bai." Man Bao patted off Bai Shan's holding her hand, and sat directly on the carriage. Daji quickly pressed the switch and locked the board again. He lowered his head and sat respectfully on the carriage, as if he was a coachman. Man Bao sat out with a butt and almost didn't step on his hand. "What do you have to say on the street? You have to invite him, find a day to post a post, everyone has an appointment and sit down and talk slowly. How many people's time you have wasted by blocking the street like this? Is it?" Man Bao said unceremoniously, "and he still has to go to school, so he's not free at the moment. What a rude little girl, and she has sharp teeth. I'm talking to your master, what are you interfering with as a servant? You are talking to people through the curtain, your eyes are really bad. Who said that I am his girl?" "I am his senior sister," Man Bao said. "Aren't you Yin Or's sister?" "Coincidentally, I am also his senior sister. I don't think you need to look for him, just look for me if you have anything." Half the street was quiet, and the young man who fell behind in the carriage couldn't help sticking his head out of the carriage, looking at the front with admiration. The three carriages were silent for a while, and the person in the car behind said with a chuckle, "Sister, this is the first time I have met such a rude little lady in Beijing." "Little lady, where is your home?" "My home is from Jianese Road." Man Bao stood up directly from the carriage and replied, "But I've been to many places, but it's not the first time I've seen people like you." The Yin family didn't expect that she would dare to come back like this, and was silent for a while. Man Bao didn't stop, but he said, "Although it's not the first time I've seen my son, I'm still so angry. What I hate the most in my life is to make trouble for others. You block the way and harm us. How many people have you caused trouble? Are you going to let people pass through?" Sister Yin laughed angrily and said, "What if we don't allow it?" Man Bao snorted, "If you don't let you block it yourself, Daji, let's go." Daji responded and pulled the reins, the whole carriage retreated, and the rear of the carriage almost hit the head of the horse behind the carriage. The horse went to the side, and then the carriage slanted into the lane they had just let out. After a dozen horses, the carriage went forward. The Yin family and the onlookers were stunned. When the people in the car reacted and asked the driver to hurry up to block their car, Daji had already returned to the carriage, and he hit the reins, and the carriage ran fast, and the driver of the carriage had only turned halfway through the carriage, and when he saw the speed of the carriage, he subconsciously gave a coward and shrank, and just like that, the carriage had already passed them and flew forward. Yin family members who were left behind. Onlookers. The teenagers behind were all stunned, then backed into the car, slapped the cardboard and laughed. The coachman was terrified when he heard the laughter, for fear that the young master would pass him by. There were also a lot of smiling students from the Kuazajian who were blocked nearby, but they only dared to laugh secretly. Sister Yin's car curtain was pulled open, she got out in anger, glanced back, kicked the driver out of the car, and said angrily, "Useless things, what's the use of raising you?" The driver did not dare to get up even after falling from the cab, so he knelt down immediately. Sister Yin turned her head to see so many people watching their excitement, she was so angry that she raised the curtain and went back to the car, and said angrily, "Why don't you get up and drive home soon? Do you want me to drive the car myself?" A little further on that section of the road is Ji Shitang. Usually, Daji will put Man Bao down in Ji Shitang before sending Bai Shan and Bai Erlang to school. He didn't stop at this moment, and drove the car directly outside the Imperial College prison. Stop. In the car, Bai Shan took off Bai Erlang's hand with all his strength. His mouth was covered with his hand, and he was so angry that he pushed him. Why are you covering me? Bai Erlang said, aren't I afraid that you will speak? He pointed to Man Bao, who climbed into the car, and said, when she quarrels with people, it can kill her at the most, but when you quarrel with others, you can make her dead alive. I have already asked, Yin Or's father, Yin Li, is Beijing. Zhao Yin, do you know what Jing Zhao Yin does? Man Bao, who just climbed into the car. She stared at Bai Erlang and called out, why didn't you say anything last night? Didn't I forget? And what if I said they won't block us today? I said that I stopped arguing with them just now. Do you know that offending Jing Zhayin is very bad for us? Bai Erlang looked suspicious. Can you hold back? After thinking about it, Man Bao said, it's a big deal, I'll cry. By the way, I'll go to the pharmacy to make a few tear-jerking pills, and you will all take them with you later. Don't quarrel with them when you meet their family, just cry. Man Bao said, if the adults in our village bully the children, and the children cry, the adults will not dare to bully them anymore. Bai Shan and Bai Erlang. Bai Erlang thought about it carefully and felt that this method was not bad. He nodded and said, okay, but the medicine package you gave me should be done a little better, and it shouldn't be too choking. Next update around 11 p.m.